Oh, hi, I'm Kay Hanley.
I'm Greg Barron.
And you're listening to Rock Out with Your Doc Out.
Rock Out with Your Doc Out. This week, man, this one.
This one.
Hopefully you watched it and because it's going to be hard. This one's going to be hard to talk about.
Yeah.
A little bit.
Biggie and Tupac.
Biggie and Tupac.
The 2002 film.
By Nick
documentary
Bromfield.
by Nick Bromfield.
Yeah. If you don't know who he is in the movie, you didn't watch the movie. Because he's the filmmaker who is in the movie for no reason.
He just he wants to be part of the story.
Yeah. But then there's a part of me, like in a weird surreal world, I wish he was always entering the room before me. Like I'd like to come in. That's what, if I have an entourage.
Like, here's a boom microphone and a tape recorder purse. Yeah. Must be Greg Barron on the way.
Yeah. Nick, his guy's here. And
his documentarian has entered the room.
Yeah. He's here and with his fucking his boom. Why does he have a boom mic? What is that? Is he shooting?
Oh God.
Is Greg shooting his thing on VCR? Is that a videotape? Are you videotaping your show?
It looks like he's.
I get all that. These are only 45 minutes long.
Is that on Betamax? Is that a Betamax machine around your hip? Well, Rick brought us some coffee, so let's get talking about our documentary.
You got it.
Wah!
Where's Tupac and Biggie Smalls?
Was actually told, hey man, we are not hiring white hosts anymore for stand-up. We're not hiring white hosts.
No.
So, yeah.
No more.
White men. No white men.
Nope. That's it. We're done.
Yeah. That's what, one of the clubs, I think it was Flappers, was like, that's just, we're not doing it. And he was like, okay. I'm going to start making some other arrangements.
Yeah.
for your career, you mean? Yes. Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
Will you hire us as hosts for the restaurant part of this place?
That's right. What is the...
You can see people.
Yeah.
But you just can't get on stage.
You can't get on stage and host
MC.
a show. Right. You can't bring other people up on stage.
Right. But you can escort them to the stage. To the table next to the stage.
Yeah. And I've been studying the history of white people with our history. So you start to go, we've been doing it wrong for a long time.
Yeah.
We've been really... Yeah, when you go back and study your history, you're like, man, nobody has a leg to stand on. You're like, when you go back, it's not even that far back. You don't even have to go that far back to go, you should just go back and relook at the Bible again or how any of this happened. It's all, everybody lives in this sort of, we've boiled it down to like these 4 facts will work for now. There were more animals. There were lots more animals. There was lots more people. When we came west, we wiped out everything.
The animals, the brown people.
Yes.
The indigenous plant life.
Right. But
we brought smallpox and whiteness.
That's right. But what did happen is that we also created food that people wanted to eat.
Right. We created
calories.
McDonald's.
Yeah. But even before then, people got started getting fat. Once America started harvesting wheat and they started, and all this, now spices were all over the place.
Yeah.
Caloric food was fairly
so really, everyone had like a plant and protein like a plant and animal based diet,
right
and then we started introducing carbs,
legumes and stuff, and then we started everything with the cheeses and the milks and stuff, and stuff started to be worth living for. Yeah after everyone had syphilis, which Columbus, he brought that too.
Yep. That must have been on the R-rated version of the history books, because I didn't know that.
No, it makes sense. Yeah, it's in true. Like that's the thing I'm realizing. Like going through this stuff now, it's like it's in the books now. It wasn't. I think it's because of Howard Zinn, but I think there's a lot more truth and a lot more depth in the history books that are now. Obviously, there would be, I guess, because more time.
Did you ever read the Howard Zinn book?
Mm-hmm. A long time ago.
It's like 7,000 pages long, and I think I read the first chapter in tiny, teeny print.
And, that may be what I did also.
Yeah.
Like now that you say
it was
that,
just like the first 10 paragraphs, and I was just like outraged and like throwing my shoes against the wall. Right. And like, fucking goddamn it.
Right.
We're terrible.
I may actually have just seen Good Will Hunting and thought that I read Howard Zinn.
Oh, okay.
Because he's mentioned in the fight
legit.
Scene. Right.
That is legit.
But as being sort of a beat thing for what, like, he references it as sort of a like, oh, okay, then you read Howard Zinn, like that bar scene where he levels that guy.
Right.
And then
how about them apples?
How about them apples?
Right.
Yeah.
I got a phone number, Skyla.
Are those accents good in that movie?
I find that people from Boston often do the most tortured Boston accents.
Did you, because you do a good one. I mean, your accent, you don't have it, but you can slip into it pretty quickly.
Yeah.
You slip it, like people can get rid of it, but then slide back into it.
That's kind of I'll see old Cleo interviews and my Boston accent was still like right there. And I don't know when it slipped away from me, but like probably one of the most painful things that someone can say to me is like, you don't sound like you're from Boston. And it's just like, ugh.
Yeah, right.
Because you
like it.
I do. I like my Boston accent. When I went to college for like a month, and I went to Emerson, and one of the professors. Now I went to Catholic school in Boston, where I was like taught. My education was all around becoming. I was educated by the nuns who taught me to be a secretary. That was like my education.
Right.
So I took a few years off before college, and when I finally got to college, it's like my academic experience was pretty limited. I hadn't read a lot of books, and the books that I did read outside of school, I just kind of like picked for myself. Like my favorite writer was like John Irving, and my favorite books were Hotel New Hampshire. Like I was a big John Irving fan.
Yeah.
And
that's a good place
so
to
when
start.
I
John
got
Irving that's a solid author.
Me too.
Those are some good words and images. That's a good place to,
But at the time, I was not confident that I didn't have the confidence in my choices, in my intellectual pursuits enough to like stand up for myself. So I had this one teacher for a class called Voice and Articulation, and I forget his name, but in the first day of school, the first day that I was within the first week of being in his class, he said to me, you need to lose your Boston accent because people will think that you're stupid. And when I said that John Irving was my favorite writer, he said, well, that makes me question how much you've read. And it was just like, he just got to the heart of like my deepest insecurities. And so I lost my accent, and I pretended to read Howard Zinn.
Right? My God, I think I read as much. That's a good story. That's a really good story. And that's really interesting too, because you sought out somebody in a weird way. You psychically sought out somebody who would confirm for you all of your fears.
Oh my God, it was
and
the
later
worst.
on, the Boston accent would be we would fall so hard for it, starting probably with Good Will Hunting and then not letting go of it until maybe a year ago after Spotlight. We went, that's pretty good
done.
run.
Yeah.
That's good. Let's find a new one. We get it. It's great. And we still enjoy it. But now.
But let's move on to a different type of person.
I think our regional accents have become more pronounced.
Hey, this is Kay, and I have some Letters to Cleo shows coming up. Boston, Paradise, Rock Club, November 16th, 17th, 18th. We're having a vinyl release party for all 3 of our albums. On Thursday the 16th, we'll be playing Aurora Borealis. On the 17th, we'll be playing Wholesale Meats and Fish. On the 18th, we're playing Go. It's going to be awesome. And if you go to letterstocleo.net, you can purchase bundles for passes to all the shows and vinyl, or you could just buy individual tickets on Ticketmaster.com. See ya then.
Hey, everybody, if you want to get a hold of us, write us at rockoutwithyourdockout@gmail, or you can follow at Kay Hanley, at Gregory Barrett. You can join the Rock Out With Your Doc Out community page on Facebook, which quite a few people have joined, and I don't think anyone knows what to do once we're there. Mm-hmm. But you can ask us questions, make suggestions. We're open to any of it, and we will, if you suggest something and we see it, we will watch it. We've done that quite a bit.
Oh, and at Rockout Doc Out.
At Rockout Doc Out.
On
also
Twitter.
At Podcan, over on the SoundCloud network, the Podcan network of whatever podcasts. We have You're Living All Over Me with me and Amira. And then just randos, just some rando ones. Me and Gil Martin, just some random stuff.
Have you chit-chatting with people?
I just chit-chatting with people. Sometimes I'll just do an interview with somebody and then never put it up. I did like a really long one with Jimmy Pardo that was super funny and I haven't put it up yet.
I want to hear that.
Yeah. I should put it up.
Talk to us. Tell us what to do.
Tell us what to do. And then make it so we can come do this live because we want to screen a movie in your town or at least come and talk about one. So think about that. Kay can play music. I can do a little stand-up. Like, let's make a thing. It'll be fun. And we'll charge $75 a ticket. Okay.
Or $7.50.
Or $7.50.
He misplaced a decimal point.
Right. That second price seems about right.
East Coast, West Coast. East Coast was Puffy, West Coast was Suge Knight, East Coast was Biggie, West Coast was Tupac. Come on now, you're messing with lives here.
She was knocking like you was scared, man. Scared.
Mr. Cameron, you say hello to my big friend.
Even though we was going through our drama, I would never wish death on nobody, you know what I'm saying? Because ain't no coming back from that.
I make music to bring us together, not to separate us. And all this East and West that needs to stop.
It was an East-West rivalry. Let's make it seem as if Bad Boy Records had something to do with the shooting of Tupac Shakur.
If FBI was following my son, where were they that night my son was shot?
You know, I was thinking like, God damn, you know, something real fishy is going on.
I was stopped and ordered not to go any further.
I go, DR, he goes, yes, Death Row Records wants you dead.
Law enforcement officers were working for gangsters, known felons, basically organized crime.
And there's certain people within the DA's office who've known about these things all along.
You know, had it been just your ordinary drive-by shooting, we would have solved it a long time ago. You gotta think, who could do this and get away with it?
Please stop rolling, because this has nothing to do with the interview.
Why did you decide to come forward with it?
Guilt.
If you knew who killed Tupac, would you tell the police?
Absolutely not.
I transported monies to arrange the hit on Biggie Small.
And do you think the same person was responsible for the two killings?
Yes. And LAPD has known this all along.
Why? I would like to know why. Miss Wallace would like to know why.
Greg Barron.
And I'm Kay Hanley.
And this is Rock Out with Your Doc Out,
a podcast where we watch and review rock and roll or just music documentaries. Because this week it's not a rock doc. It's not a rock doc.
It's a what did you call it?
It's a hip hop doc.
Oh my God, hip hop doc. It is a hip hop doc. I really had wanted to, because the great thing about the rock documentary is you don't have to have any information about the movie. I mean, the music. You don't have to. We've talked a little bit about that fact that you actually grew up liking hip hop and rap, and I'm just old enough where it wasn't a thing until I was older.
Yeah,
and then I felt sort of almost like you weren't really invited.
Yeah,
it's not that. I never hated it. I was always surprised by people that were like, that stuff is shit. I was like, is it any more shit than the Circle Jerks? Like it's
right.
It's all not Mozart.
It's all pop music. It's a low art form.
Yeah. And I recognized it as being punk rock. Like I recognized it as being,
subversive
and
dangerous.
Yeah. Of a culture, of a time, of a moment, of a mindset, of a point of view. And then when it became this, but at the beginning, the stuff that crossed over was still pretty, the radio stuff was pretty easy to get and maybe dirty, but never violent.
No.
Or about violence. Not that it was meant to be violent, but then there was that, so then it becomes that East Coast. Like before, I'm barely paying attention to it, and suddenly there's rap. There, people are getting shot.
Right.
I have I really was not. If it was on, I liked it and listened to it, and I could identify people from the radio, but I really didn't have any sense of the world at all. I remember I remember NWA, because if you lived in California and you were anywhere near the riots, right, like like I just remember that the outgrowth of that.
Good movie.
Yeah,
that was a really good movie.
Yeah. And white people loved Snoop.
Yes.
White
he's
people
funny
didn't
and
like
he's
when white people say they listen to
stoned.
NWA. I was like, well, yes, but you heard Snoop at parties.
And he managed to bridge the gap between like Gangsta and Will Smith somehow.
Yes,
just like also goofy, funny, but also like with all the trappings of. But he was a lover, not a fighter. You know what I mean? Like
100%.
he was like
100%.
he was all about the ladies and the bouncing cars and like his money and being surrounded by the gangster shit and being a Crip, but like and flashing the gang signs. But he was not about the fighting or the guns or any of that shit.
Right.
Yeah, he was about the hood, the neighborhood.
Yes.
Not the hood, the neighborhood.
The neighborhood. Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. And the East Coast stuff, I didn't have any affinity for at all. I didn't know at all. I didn't know any of it. I didn't know Biggie. I didn't.
So the movie that we watched this week was Biggie and Tupac. It was a 2002 documentary about Biggie and Tupac and their murders. 2002 movie by Nick Bromfield. Tupac was murdered in Las Vegas, September 7th, 1996. Biggie was killed in Los Angeles, right over in Hollywood on like Fairfax, March 9th of 1997.
Right, it was at the Peterson car
at the car place.
Museum.
Yeah, and they were having like some kind of like the Vibe Awards or something.
Right.
And that's a very well-traveled bit of real estate over there. It's hard to imagine like
it's museums and delicatessens.
Yeah.
It's actually a pretty like it's a fairly square. It's it's a fairly square. Yeah, it's a fairly square part of town.
It's right down the street. It's a couple of blocks away from the Grove.
Right.
On one side, and then like
right.
Wilshire heading towards like.
Yeah, and then there's a lot of Hasids. Like it's a very like it's really kind of it's an area that people actually walk in. Los Angeles, like it's sort of one of those sort of. Yeah. It is a place where people sort of walk around.
It's like Mid Wilshire.
Mid Wilshire, exactly.
So these guys apparently they started their careers kind of together. They were friends and colleagues. And then they became enemies. And a lot of people think that they became enemies because of their relationship to Suge Knight, who is kind of like, he was a kingmaker, head of Death Row Records. Everybody knows Suge Knight.
Right.
He's
and then
fucking
P.
Suge
Diddy,
Knight.
And then P. Diddy
So Suge Knight was West Coast.
Right.
P. Diddy and Bad Boy Records was East Coast, and there the twixt shall meet.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
So they got into some kind of fight about something, and they had like a feud, but it didn't seem like a really serious feud. It was just kind of like, some of it was sort of like that fakery of like Oasis and Blur or Beatles and Stones. Like it was, a lot of it was just like their feud was hyped.
Right. It was always hard to tell with this stuff, like what was real and what wasn't.
Yeah.
So, and this movie seeks to, because there's also the issue of the movie and the filmmaker. So the filmmaker is an Englishman named Nick Bromfield, who sort of came of age in documentary filmmaking. Probably most of you have some sense of this, but this comes in the wake of Michael Moore, who sort of created the Gonzo documentary in a way. That idea of like, I'm also a character in this movie. I'm the guy. I've got my camera, and you see me trying to get in places that I can't.
Right.
Right. So now this is an Englishman who's sort of copped the same thing. He's won some awards. He's done everything from war stuff to, pop music documentaries. But he made the ill-fated Kurt and Courtney documentary, the one that seeks to blame Courtney for Kurt's death. The idea is that he's going to try and prove that she murdered Kurt, which
I didn't see that.
It's awful. I mean, there's a moment where he's like, this is the kind of filmmaker
he starts out with like kind of like the end game in mind, and then the film is just like in the service of proving whatever his thesis is the first place. Okay,
and there were some people, look, this is pre-internet, and there were people that believed, and I remember hearing this like not that long after Kurt died, like, oh yeah, man, Courtney had Kurt killed, or Courtney.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I know a lot of bad things about her, but I just don't think it was that complex. Like,
yeah.
Courtney seemed to be freely just doing whatever she felt like doing.
And she loved that guy. And she didn't just love him, she loved being his wife. Like, she loved him in private, but it seems like she really loved the public nature of being Kurt's wife.
Yes. And they were sick junkies. And they were both dramatic. They were both dramatic, and they were both difficult, and they were both super on drugs when he died.
Mm-hmm.
And but just the idea that like there's a part in the movie where he's sitting on a train track with there was a band called the Mentors, who I think, going back looking at them, they may have been complete racists, but they were sort of they were sort of a metal band that wore black hoods, and they played like gore metal or something. Anyway, and I think maybe one of those guys was a part of. He maybe either killed Kurt or was one of the people that was a part of having Kurt killed. It was ridiculous. It was a ridiculous movie. So you have that coloration to your experience. Experience with this movie. Yeah.
To me, it seems like, and I went back and like Googled some of his other films, and to me, just based on Biggie and Tupac, and then like the other movies that he's done, it seems like he's less about the music than he is about the controversy.
Yes.
And like, so his filmmaking was about covering the controversy and the who did it, and really the fact that the music was incidental. And in fact, he could not, there were some serious problems with this movie, but one of them was that, and I'm not saying that this is his fault, but they couldn't get Tupac's family to clear any of the music. So there's no Tupac music in the Tupac movie. There's no
Tupac. There's not only that, but there were parts of this that were such parody. I'm gonna play some clips, but he inserts himself in the movie, and it's almost as like you go, okay, he's got like a prop camera and a prop boom, and he's going to run in.
Oh my God.
He runs in every place with his stuff. He's got the boom, and he comes running into the scene.
It's so unnecessary.
It's 100%
It's so
unnecessary.
superfluous that he has to like run in way down. So it's like in many of the shots, all you see is just like his arm and like the boom mic, which is so stupid.
Yeah, it's just like, this is happening, and we're only going to have this moment, and then he goes into somebody's house and he managed to square himself, so there's sort of a shot of him, and then he walks out of frame. Like, I was like, oh, we're not in good hands. We're not in good hands. Like, we're not going to. However,
it is very well mic'd. The sound is delightful.
Right.
The sound is better than the film.
Yeah. And but he is the guy that has like the interviews where he's talking to Suge Knight's friend's buddy, who was also there.
Oh my God.
Who raps, right?
Yeah.
And then he's doing a long interview with a guy in a field who has I'll look some of this stuff up, but I really was like, I had to fight to stay in it.
Yeah.
Till a certain point. Then I realized, well, anyway, were you drawn into the movie?
It was frustrating, and I felt like he was paying attention to all the wrong shit. But in the end, I ended up really caring for Valletta Wallace, who is Biggie's mom.
Right.
And I thought, he included her a lot, and she cleared a lot of his music, I guess. And she seemed like she really loved her son. So the fact that I cared about her so much by the end means that he did a good job with her, and like in the way he kind of placed her in the movie and how he kept coming back to her. Another recurring theme was the police officer, Russell Poole, who was LAPD. They kept coming back to him because he was investigating Biggie's murder, kept getting the runaround, and was ultimately kicked off the case. But he seemed to think that dirty LAPD was responsible. And I was surprised to find out that all of Death Row's security, or a lot of Death Row Records security and Suge Knight's personal security, was provided by moonlighting LAPD, which is so fucked.
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
So here's what's interesting about it. When you go back and look at it, there are pieces of this that are 100% out of a great cop movie. Like this is, there are, the Rampart scandal goes on. There are people on the payroll.
Yeah.
You find out later on after this that the guy who was the cop that was moonlighting as the bodyguard was undercover FBI.
Right.
Right? So that's what?
It's all so weird.
Some of these guys are dead. A couple of weeks. The old, remember the old police officer that drives around?
Yeah, the Compton police officer.
Yeah. He just got arrested he and his son just both got arrested like this year for
You're kidding.
Trafficking. No.
Drug trafficking?
Huge drug trafficking.
They were
Yeah, the Whites, I think it was their last name.
They were Reggie Jr. and Reggie Sr.
Yeah.
And Reggie Sr. took the camera crew around to show them the various neighborhoods in Compton where people would hang out and stuff like that. And he was really sweet. And then Reggie Jr. was the former Compton cop who graduated to running Death Row Records while Suge was in prison.
Right.
Which was also crazy. And he kept cock blocking all the attempts. Reggie Jr. kept cock blocking Bromfield from interviewing Suge in prison, which he went to prison at the end of the movie. I don't know if we want to get into that now. You have some clips that you would like to play and discuss?
Here's one, and this is just sidebar that has nothing to do really with this is just Biggie rapping. But there's a moment during this rap where another guy jumps in and sings along with him. And I forgot that this was a thing in hip hop. So I'm just going to play this. Hopefully this will.
Biggie used to open for Tupac.
There was a point in rap for like maybe 2 years where somebody would just sing also off key like that.
Yeah.
That was like a thing. Do you remember that at all?
You got what I need.
Right.
You say she's just a friend. Who was that guy?
What was that weird moment? That's so
like
strange.
Bad singing was a thing.
It was like bad thing, but it was like in
Well,
hip-hop.
it was like I'm such a raw rap badass motherfucker that when I sing, I'm gonna sing badly because that's how much of a shit I do not give.
It's like they put Anthony Kiedis on all of their records. I just forgot about that. I forgot that was a thing. Like it went away, but I forgot that was a thing. Like that people would sing that, they didn't. Yeah, there was a lot of them.
Yeah.
Where people would just, and it's kind of cool. Like it's actually dissonant.
But then that turned into people singing for real. Then they started getting people to like all the good stuff in music. Like it gets ruined once Top 40 Radio gets a hold of it, and
yes,
and major labels and stuff. And then the next thing you know, you have.
Right, so then that bad singer guy goes, well, what are we going to do now? And then someone said, don't worry about it, T-Pain, because what I have is called auto-tune. And we're going to put it on that Tupac song. We're going to put it on, and it's never going away. I'm on a boat.
That's amazing.
I'm on a boat. That's what I should do. I should give the oral history of rap music, having known 4 or 5 artists.
What's to stop you?
I mean, I took a picture with Nas once, and I didn't know who he was. His mom watched my TV show.
Oh, really?
And he asked if he could have a photo with me that he could send to his mom's.
And you were like, who are you?
I was like, yeah, sure, man. Like, what do you do? And he goes, I'm in music. I go, that's cool. And
he didn't say, I'm the fucking voice of a generation.
No.
Wow.
No. He said, can I have a picture of my mom's? And then he nervously gave the camera to the door guy and put his arm around me. And then we did the photo. And then he was like, yeah, my name's Nas. And I had that like, oh man, like, I think I went clear. That's how white I am. Like I feel like I was wearing penny loafers and a button. Like I just went Dan Coyle with it.
Wow.
I just was like, yeah. Yeah, so that was just, I needed to like, to touch base with that phenomenon. Because I did find parts of this movie hard to stick with, and then I pulled little things out that I liked. And then the thing I wanted to describe about him as a filmmaker, and when you scroll through the movie, you don't even have to watch it, just pull it up on Netflix and then scroll it. And you'll see plenty of Nick. He bursts into every scene. There he is again with his with his camera again. So at some point, there are moments of this documentary where you go, what part is this for? Because he doesn't really stay. So he's going to go hear some unreleased Tupac music.
Right, from some guy in the neighborhood.
So he meets a hinky dude in an alleyway who plays a song on a boombox while a helicopter flies over.
Right.
It's so absurd. It seems this again is like a Spinal Tap,
why did you put this in here? That whole 10 minutes of the movie was just so pointless. Except
Michael was trying to sell us some of Tupac's earlier unheard music.
Now, when he's saying that, Michael's down an alleyway.
Yeah.
Like, that's not how you buy music. Maybe Nick doesn't know the difference between music and cocaine. Because I'm like, this guy's on a cell phone, in a beanie, in a down jacket, in an alleyway.
And he's acting all shifty.
Fuck, is he sketch?
And nervous, yeah.
Yeah,
he's probably now worth several $1 million. Here he is talking to Dana, who co-owned the music.
But that's not what they show. He's on the phone talking to Dana, but then a cop shows up.
So he talks to the cop.
Hello?
Yeah.
What's going on here?
Just doing some filming.
Okay, well, don't put that in my face.
Well,
don't put that in my face. No, that's what he does, dude. He's going to burst in. He's going to be in your bathroom tonight when you get there with his headphones and his boom.
And he ain't going to ask.
And has refused to license it to us. So we were interested to see what Michael had. So the police are always everywhere.
Right? So they go down an alleyway. Now they're in behind a garage.
But
dude, what happened there?
And
I don't know. Something wrong with
yeah. And then I'll pull up here.
Afeni, Tupac's mom.
Anyway, he plays it for him in an alleyway. I don't have that.
We don't end up hearing it because of the helicopters, because of the bad sound, because the cassette won't work.
Yeah, and then the cassette stops. But either that should be the entire movie. There were side roads. I was like, just make this your movie.
It's like you just going down. You're missing random alleys in Compton with like a friend of an uncle of a cousin of Tupac.
I mean, look, I will say, because you're like a white Englishman running around interviewing people in Compton, like, good. That's balls, man. I mean because you could have been taken out, right? I mean, obviously
but that's the other thing that this kind of illustrates is that that being a star fucker is not just limited to like the world of like comedy or music or films. It's like hip hop is just as bad, because the more peripheral the guy or gal that Bromfield interviews, the more they're willing to be like, but look at me, and they'll just like spill the fucking beans. And even there was this one cop that kept coming back into the movie, this guy, this cop named Hackey. He had all kinds of information about, was he LAPD at one point?
He's the guy that ends up being undercover FBI.
Oh, he's the one.
He's undercover FBI, because when he's like, why were you, because when he asks him, this is, okay, I will say this. If you watch this and then go online and get information about what's happened since, this is interesting. Like, it's a fine source if you want to go, what happened to this guy? Oh my God. For instance, Russell Poole died talking about Biggie last year at a police station, had a heart attack.
Who? Which one?
Russell Poole, the main guy.
Shut your mouth.
They're making a film called Labyrinth, with Johnny Depp playing
Labyrinth.
Right, Labyrinth, and Johnny Depp is playing Russell Poole.
How do you know this?
Because I looked it up. Yeah, because I looked it up, because I wanted this to be good for the people listening to it, because I had a feeling we were both going to be like,
I'm so glad you did.
But so actually, he could go back and make like 10 movies, because I want to know what happened to that cassette tape, and I want to know, I want that song, and I want that dude to be there with it. Like, he was fascinating. The people, there's a Yeah, like the ancillary people are right.
And there are the ancillary people have varying degrees of sincerity. Like Russell Poole, I felt like was a really sincere guy. He was the LAPD that got kicked off the case and I think was pretty ostracized.
If his story's real, it's off, and that's what this movie should be about. If his story is real,
then that's so messed up.
Yes.
What happened to him and what happened to the information. Like his story makes you believe. Like before I saw this movie, I always thought that like the stories about the LAPD cover up of like they really elevated these murders to a status they didn't deserve. I thought it's just like some dudes getting killed outside of like a fucking Tyson fight or outside, it's like who would just beat someone up. And, Tupac, before he died, he had just beat the shit out of some guy outside the Tyson fight.
Right.
And granted, it turns out one of the stories that Hackey told was that was a setup in and of itself, that Suge Knight set up that fight. He was the one who kind of like planted the seed in the ear of Tupac that, that this guy that he beat up had like stolen a gold chain or something like that. And so he set up Tupac to have that fist fight to take the heat off of him for actually orchestrating Tupac's murder. It is said by several people, Hackey, Gene the bodyguard, and Russell, that that Tupac was planning to leave Death Row Records and take all of his music with him, that Suge already owed Tupac $10 million, and that that was why he was just like, sorry, you gotta go.
Right.
You gotta go, because I'm not paying you $10 million when you take your music and go over to Bad Boy or whatever.
Right.
Or wherever he was planning on going.
And Tupac's a tough one because, you get these varying stories and then he had no access to him. My favorite is, so Tupac was in films, like he was in feature
he was
films,
an actor.
right? So, but at a certain point, because he has no rights to any of this, he says, I think I can find the clip, but he basically says, Tupac loved acting. And then they show a clip of him with his friends putting on a wig and imitating Rick James. Like amazing. That's what he has to back it up. It's like, well,
that's not really acting, like it's
so.
It's
that
amazing,
is so
though.
the movie you're making. That is the movie you're making. And then he does it again, and Tupac, he goes, instead of just saying like he's an excellent mimic, he said something else grand about him, and then he does, and then he's doing Pacino and Scarface, and it's like
he can do great impressions. His impressions are so great that he
and he's
can
like
do Shakespeare.
my little friend, my big friend, and then everyone's laughing because they're scared of him.
I mean, it was a good Al Pacino impression.
And then they gloss over things like when he'd been in jail for rape.
Right.
Like that kind of like, what? Wait,
go back to that.
He went back to jail for, or had been accused of rape.
Right.
I don't.
But he was in jail for it.
Yeah.
So it was more than just an accusation. You don't go to jail.
Well, that's the thing. Like this, the web of this is so huge that really you can only pick a piece of it.
Yeah.
Like you can pick just Biggie or just Tupac, or you can pick just the crime, just do the forensics of the crime.
I want to see that movie, Greg.
I know. Well, there's apparently 4 or 5 movies coming out this year.
So you're saying I can see that movie?
I think you can see some version of it. None of them have Nick Bromfield running in. I believe the Mr. Show used to do. There was a character, Mr. Show documentary, and he was sort of a couple of
Ronnie
guys.
Dobbs.
In Ronnie Dobbs,
Cops.
right.
It was the Cops guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so he was sort of Nick Bromfield.
Yeah, the guy from Cops.
Right.
Yeah, Odenkirk's character.
Odenkirk is the Englishman, is following him around.
Yes.
Right.
That's where he got it.
Yeah.
Oh, it's all coming together for
all
me.
Their comedies from our that they do those English characters that can't get through an interview, and it is based on that Stone Roses interview where the two of them won't talk. Like it was like it's Oasis. It's like actually it's the Stone Roses then Oasis. But yes, it's kind of, the film is sort of at times super ridiculous.
At times.
Yeah, most of it.
I think most of the time.
Yeah.
Okay, so at 41:45, Hackey, this is the officer. I feel like he went to jail. But anyway, let's go to that.
At the time of his death, Tupac was owed over $10 million by Death Row. Just before his murder, Tupac told Hackey and others he'd be leaving death row and taking unreleased songs worth more millions with him. Hackey regards these as the real motives for Tupac's murder. He complained, though, that my questions were too vague.
So you think what? You think I should be more specific?
Be more specific and direct with your questions.
Okay, do you think Suge Knight orchestrated the hit? Saved by the pager.
Pregnant pause.
Based upon what I've been told within the industry and based upon what I knew for a fact that was going on, Tupac was leaving a record company, okay, because Tupac didn't need Suge Knight. He'd had several other offers. I would have to say, in a sense, that he had something to do with the orchestration of the shooting of Tupac.
So tell me, do you think that the two murders, the two killings, were connected? Biggie Smalls and Tupac?
My personal opinion, again. Yes, I believe they're both connected.
And do you think the same person was responsible for orchestrating the two?
Yes.
All right.
And that person's in Death Row Records?
Yes.
Okay.
That conversation took about 10 minutes longer than it had to.
It had to. And also, now the movie's over. And there's still an hour and 4 minutes left. The most credible guy in the whole thing, who turns out to be an FBI informant, who actually stops the filmmaker to instruct him on filmmaking.
Yeah.
Ask more specific questions.
Right. Be more direct.
Be more direct.
Right. But then he doesn't answer directly. Then
right.
he's just
Well, he wanted to play his part.
In a sense, there's a feeling that maybe...
It's almost like he's saying, fucking give me the line. You're not reading the line right. Cue me. No, you say is that I get to do this pregnant. I get to sit back and my beeper goes off and it's still 1990. What year is this?
It was
2002.
2002.
It really feels like it.
So what
really
he
big.
was saying after that was that Biggie then had to be killed because the whole situation was getting too close to Suge and Death Row and the LAPD connection. So Biggie had to be killed to take the heat off them and maybe put it on, Bad Boy or whatever. Right. But Christopher Wallace, Biggie Smalls, he was just one thing. Another thing that I learned from watching this movie is that he was just like a really nice guy who loved his mom and just wanted to take care of her.
Went to private school.
Well, private school-ish. It's still it looked pretty. He definitely didn't leave. It's not like he went to Connecticut.
No.
I went to private school too, but it was in Dorchester. It was St. Greg's.
Did you guys wear uniforms?
Yeah.
Oh, you did?
Catholic school uniform.
Oh, yeah. I guess so.
But it was not private school.
I couldn't tell if they were trying to. I couldn't tell what they were trying to say because it's that thing. Sometimes you're like,
because I think they were trying to build him up as being like privileged, and he didn't grow up like impoverished or anything. His mom worked and they had a good life. She says that they had a 7-room house growing up, and that a lot of his poetry that he turned into rap music was sort of like a fantasy of tough, humble beginnings, which he couldn't really own it.
She goes, the guy who lived in the shack, that's like a character. We didn't live in a shack. Like we had a 7-room, like we, she's like, and she's super articulate and
just loved him. She loved him.
Yeah, he was a performer. But Dre is sort of that same thing where like he wrestled. He had a few personalities before he landed on this guy straight out of. You know what I mean? Like I think everybody, because I think we really desire, especially in music, we just has to be authentic. Yeah. Because. Right, like that, it has to be authentic. Yeah, and
I think he really was. I think he was super authentic.
Well, crazy,
but you can make up stories.
Can also be super wealthy.
Yeah, or come from wealthy.
You don't have to be.
They're generally not though, and like, well, then again, in rock and roll, you can. We've talked about the strokes and
that whole thing.
You know,
Every
they're
band,
all
that whole
like
scene.
rich motherfuckers.
Yeah,
and they still seem authentic and authentically dangerous and like pained.
Yeah, and
Lots
that's what
of-
that. But also that music felt like private school boys who were fucking too high, you know, and too bummed out, and and this was gonna be the best moment of their lives, and it turned out it was.
Mm-hmm.
It was over very quickly.
Yeah.
Right. Now, I don't know if this stood out to you at all, but there's the cop we talked about earlier, the one that was nice and ended up getting arrested last year for drug trafficking
Oh
with his
man,
son.
that breaks my heart.
Yeah, but those cop stories are real, man.
Yeah.
You know, and the divide between police officer and criminal in some places is just very thin.
Mm.
There's Russell Poole. This interview strikes me as a bit egregious and has nothing to do
If she knew about their investments.
No investments.
So they're talking.
This makes me so mad.
This is the one woman they interview the whole time, and
This
she
was
is
so superfluous
she's
and stupid.
She is the.
I
I'll let him
almost
set it up.
just like punched my TV.
This,
if it wasn't such an awesome TV, I would have.
This makes no sense.
As the girlfriend of Officer David Mack.
These are the two cops. Back up just a little bit. So these are the two. This is covering the two cops from the. These are this conversation is covering the girlfriend who shared two of the police officers who may have been involved in Biggie's killing, but were definitely involved in the Ramparts scandal, which was the Ramparts precinct of the LAPD.
Yes,
and their names were.
And that's a fascinating. That's a
whole other story
fascinating
that was crazy and amazing. And their names are as follows: Mack and Perez.
Yeah,
officers Mack and Perez.
Yes, so
from the Ramparts.
They're trying
precinct.
to. They're trying to find either of them. They can't. They find this girl who worked at the police station, I believe. And
she was the girlfriend of
she was also the girlfriend
both of them.
Of both of them.
It's totally weird.
And she's sitting in a room with her lawyer,
who's a
actually
disgusting
the one
piece of shit,
asking these questions for no reason. This has nothing
just for
to do.
like the salaciousness to put him. He's a disgusting.
So here it is for you to enjoy.
Officer Rafael Perez, Officer Mack's former partner and best friend, who was convicted for the sale of drugs, racketeering, and falsifying evidence. Officer Kevin Gaines, who was having an affair with Suge Knight's wife Sharita, who was later killed by a fellow LAPD officer in a road rage incident.
Sheesh.
Russell also suspected Harry Billups, aka Ammar Mohammed, as a possible hitman. He's godfather to Officer Mack's kids. Officer Mack was later convicted for this bank robbery.
You had a witness in Big.
So then let's just move this along a little bit.
Went to interview Sonia Flores at her lawyer's office. She was Officer Rafael Perez's girlfriend, as well as the girlfriend of Officer David Mack. I wondered if they represent the new breed of police officer, whose values Hackey talked about.
What cop doesn't want to be in the limelight? You know, everything is about, you know, authority, power, being in control. So, I mean, everybody wants to be around money. Everybody wants to be around, you know, women. It's just...
Not everybody. Not everybody.
No.
Hackey also identified officers Mack and Perez as being present at private death row parties.
You weren't driving a Jaguar or anything,
This
right?
is Marshall Bickauer, Sonia's lawyer. Mack and Perez were alleged to have had lots of money. I asked Sonia if she knew about their investments.
No investments that I knew of.
You just had a good time with him.
Is the investments question? What
I
part
know.
of,
What's
is that,
the investments?
What are we doing
And plus,
here?
so Bromfield is asking about the investments, but the lawyer does not care about the investments. He wants to get to the good stuff.
He wants to get to the good stuff.
Because he's a disgusting piece of shit.
This is Marshall Bickauer, Sonia's lawyer. Mack and Perez were alleged to have had lots of money. I asked Sonia if she knew about their investments.
No investments that I knew of.
You just had a good time with him.
I just had a great time with him.
Did he ever ask you to experiment in a sexual way with
Mm-hmm.
women? Or more than 2 people or 3 people?
Ugh.
Again, this is her lawyer asking her this question on camera. Nowhere does this fit into this story in any way.
And Bromfield didn't fucking ask.
No, Bromfield didn't ask.
No.
For one moment, Bromfield's the guy in the room I like.
Right. And he's just like, I mean, he lets her talk, but he's like clearly like, what the?
Right. And then you're like, are we, like, it starts to feel, oh my God.
Yeah, we did. We did. But it wasn't.
With other police officers? Or?
Yeah, I had sex with other police officers, yeah.
In front of him?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Just crazy sex.
Talk about their orgies.
He wants to know.
Talk about their orgies. Like, it's so weird. And they're both getting off on it. And it's, I don't know if this guy goes, look, I can get this girl to talk about having sex with the cops. And he went, yeah, all right, let's get that on camera, I guess. Maybe it fits. Or maybe it doesn't, but it definitely doesn't belong in the movie. And
well,
it's
again,
so
he's
exploitive.
all about the scandal and the controversy. He doesn't give a shit about like the music, or it's just like get as much of like the dirt on camera as you possibly can. But that's his thing.
Then make the movie about the cops.
Well, he does.
Why drag those nice murders into this?
Right.
These horrible police officers and these two gangland hits those are high style hits that were done in a very like this shit is so.
But he has no story without this incident. Or the two incidences of the murders, you know, of these very high profile people. Without Biggie and Tupac, he can't get into the girlfriend who has orgies with her two LAPD boyfriends.
I just feel so bad for this woman. Like, what is she doing there? And who's there? Like,
and she trusts her lawyer, and she's, you know.
Maybe. I don't know. I mean, it's interesting because, like I said, there's about 10 movies in this. Mm-hmm. You know, there's the father to son cop team that just got arrested. There are all these dirty cops. There's Russell Poole, the guy that nobody will listen to, seems so sad. And those guys, and so at one point, Russell Poole is threatened by his fellow officers, and they leave on his desk a schematic of a toilet that has a shit going down the pipe, and then they write, "This is you." What
does that mean?
That took a lot. Like they had to find a schematic of a toilet with a shit in it,
or draw it themselves.
you
like
just
go to
write
the plumber's
something.
Draw
Yeah, draw a poop.
So
I know we don't have emojis at that point. We can't send him the poop emoji, but like you're going down the drain. I don't like that. It probably like sat on his desk for like 4 days before he went, wait, this is to me. I thought this was like a work thing. Like we had to make sure you flush. Don't put your...
The message was very muddled. I don't think they did a good job.
No, and it actually...
So if you're the mafia, you cut off a horse's head and leave it in somebody's bed.
That's right.
But if you're the LAPD, you mimeograph...
you have to mimeograph it too.
A plumber's manual.
That's right.
And like...
Right.
Wait for the guy to understand a week later, like, oh, this is a message, a veiled threat against me.
I thought it was a warning about something that was going to happen in the building. That was one of the many things on my desk that I haven't had a chance to get to yet.
Wow, they're giving me another job. Like,
I'm the piece of shit.
Wait, what?
And then the poor guy goes, he left the force and felt suicidal. And
so then there was an interesting thing about the bookkeeper, which was kind of like,
oh right,
it was just, I felt like there was more to this story than we got, but he was the guy who. There's an interview with this guy named Mark Hyland, in quotes, the bookkeeper.
Right.
And he claims to have driven big bushels filled with money from LA to Phoenix to secure the services of a hitman to kill Biggie. And And he was in jail for something else, for delivering money for a hit.
For delivering the money for the hit.
But I wanted to know more about him.
He had a lawyer in there with him as well.
Okay.
Who was like, remember what we say?
Dude,
remember
you
what
have
we say?
federal immunity.
Yeah.
But you don't have state immunity.
Right. Just tell him about that time you fucked those two girls. Did you fuck those two girls? Were they both your girlfriend? Did you like it? What was it like? Did they go, who went first? That's what lawyers do. Yeah, they grill you in front of people about your sex life.
Reveal things that you're not supposed to reveal.
I don't
that make you
law
look
at all.
guilty by association. What did you say?
I don't understand law at all. I had no idea.
We heard all the wrong shit about law school.
I did.
It's actually way funner than we thought.
Yeah, you're allowed to just ask people shit in front of the cameras.
So, sort of getting to the end of the movie, Bromfield is calling around trying to, the whole time it's been like getting to Suge, talking to Suge. Suge did it. Did Suge do it? That's, I guess if there's any running thread running through the whole thing, it's like Suge being just like a really dangerous guy who probably did this.
He seems genuinely dangerous.
He does.
He doesn't. So that's the thing that's so interesting. Like the other guys seem
like dilettantes of gangster adjacent.
Yeah. And then they get in with like and then you're like, oh, that's what the real deal. Like,
but Suge seems like fucking for real.
Yeah. The scariest people in this are the cops.
Kinda.
Right? The other cops.
And LAPD, I mean, it doesn't take much to remember back to the 90s what we knew about LAPD.
Yeah.
Not nice, warm, fuzzy people.
No.
Really kind of bad.
Corrupt and bigoted.
Racist.
And and it's
unless the black people had shit tons of money and then they would do anything to protect them, like Suge Knight, which is why he supposedly had all LAPD as part of his private and company security.
Yeah.
So Bromfield gets on the phone with Reggie Jr., who is the former Compton cop who is now running death row, who is just like completely cock blocking all of Bromfield's attempts to interview Suge, even though Suge is in prison. So it's like, why is he even? It's not like Suge has a fucking spokesman when he's in prison, but apparently Reggie Jr. thinks that he does. And it's funny because he gives the example, the reason that he says that he doesn't want Bromfield to interview Suge in prison is because he saw Kurt and Courtney. And he was just like, I don't like what you did with that story. I don't like how you made people look in that movie.
Fair enough.
Yeah. And that's the reason that he gives. So that's kind of hilarious.
Yeah,
but
if you were the Super Size Me guy, I'd think about it.
Right.
Super Size Me, the fat guy from Detroit, any of those people.
Roger and me, I respected that as a piece of cinema.
Absolutely.
But you, sir, are a hack.
You're the fucking Heidi Fleiss documentary, please.
Oh, that's what he said. It was a Heidi Fleiss. It wasn't Kurt and Courtney.
Oh, it was Heidi Fleiss.
Heidi Fleiss movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so he did not appreciate the cinema stylings of Nick Bromfield. So anyway, what Nick does, of course, is he makes an end run around that and just goes to the prison, which is funny. The prison that he's in is called Mule Creek Prison. And it looks more like a jail, really.
Right.
Because, so he gets there and the warden, this whole scene is so inexplicable. I have so many problems and questions about this last scene. The warden just like kind of takes, Nick and his, and his stupid boom mic and his tape recorder purse that he always has with him. And like
sound purse.
And his,
do you have a sound purse, Rick?
Sound purse.
Do you have a sound purse? Oh, there's your sound purse right there.
Rick has a sound purse, but he leaves it on the fucking floor.
Oh my God.
So anyway,
nice job,
and then he has a new cameraman who I can't tell if he thought that the cameraman did a good or a bad job. He makes comments about the new cameraman. Why you would bring a brand new cameraman to try and get an interview with like the main, like the fucking Moby Dick of your movie is like beyond me. Like what the fuck?
The Moby Dick of your movie.
So he gets in and they're like, and first of all, the warden can't find Suge.
No.
But doesn't seem to be concerned at all about like, oh, I can't find it. So they're out in like, they're outside in the
yard.
Thank you. The yard. I think that's the technical term for the yard, at the prison is the yard.
Yeah.
So they can't find them, but find some other people to, some other dilettantes to talk about whatever in our useless conversations.
Yeah.
And then they go back inside to Suge's cell block and Suge is there. and the warden goes over and has a private conversation with Suge. And then Suge agrees to the interview. They go back outside of the yard when everyone's gone. Suge comes out smoking a cigar. Like, how's that? Like a big old like Cuban job, not like a bullshit cigarillo thing, which would be against the rules of prison, I would think. But like a big fancy fucking cigar. So what?
Yeah.
And then he talks to him.
Yeah.
What did you think of that conversation?
I thought the whole thing was, I was like, is this staged? I don't understand how you get a cigar. I got hung up on where you get the cigar.
Yeah, I did too.
I really shouldn't have. It's it's not like they're not allowed human. Like, I'm sure they're allowed to have things. They can have a cigar.
I don't think you can have a cigar.
I feel like
you can't have a cigar. You can't have cigarettes.
I haven't done any time, so I don't know. Maybe each prison has its own rules.
You've never watched like
and
Lockup?
It could be a private one. No, I won't watch that stuff. It makes me nervous.
Oh, all right.
Yeah.
Because you can kind of relate to those people who are in there and just be like, man, I dodged a bullet.
I'm too close, man. I could easily.
Me too.
It's like, no.
Hashtag me too.
Dave, Dave Anthony was a huge lockup fan. We used to talk about it all the time. We used to talk about shivving people.
Oh yeah.
And having a celly and all that. But and my sister used to watch those things constantly.
Yeah.
And the ones about biker gangs. And she loved the ones about but yeah, so it
was pretty absurd.
It seemed absurd.
Yeah.
And then I just didn't care. I was like, we got here and I'm like, I don't care.
So what he does get Suge to say is that basically, I didn't do it, and Snoop is a snitch.
Right. Which we knew because we saw Starsky and Hutch. We knew Snoop was a snitch. And is he a snitch or is he just tired of this bullshit, man?
And also, like, why are you even saying that? Who cares?
Yeah. And if he's a snitch,
it's like he's just constantly trying to take the heat off.
Can you snitch on somebody who didn't do something wrong? Gotcha.
No.
I have to say, we're trying to expand the palette and watch more things, and we were trying to find something because I am interested. Like, it did make me go, oh, I really need to go back and find a couple of really good historic documents about hip hop.
Yeah.
I remember there was a really great one. There were two VH1 ones about New York and about Los Angeles, and I really would like to know more about it, to have more of a background in it, because part of me felt like a little bit of a dilettante. But this was the white man's version. This is what it was like to be white in the world, in rap, where you have to go down an alleyway to listen to it, because like you're down an alleyway listening to a boombox with a guy you don't know.
Yeah.
And you can only play part of it. That's the white man's adventure in music.
But it also,
you don't belong
like,
here.
it wasn't, I agree with that. And but at the same time, it wasn't salacious enough to work on that level either. Like, it wasn't LA Confidential enough.
Right.
You know?
He also didn't come loaded. Like, Michael Moore, whether you like his movies or not, is shouting down the hallway the thing you did.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But unprecedented labor, the cost. You put more people out of, how do you feel about the fact that you put people out of jobs every day? Like, at least you go, all right, maybe this didn't happen in the order is, but that he's yelling at that guy and that feels real.
Right.
And he came with something. He came, focused. Where Nick Bromfield's like, I'll figure something out when I get there. Can you tell me? And it's all like, can you tell me anymore? He has nothing.
He has nothing to, and even the thing that he thinks he knows for sure, which is that Suge did this. It's like he's not laser focused on that. He will just like meander off for any shiny object that gets in his way, and it just makes for a very unsatisfying story. And I just feel like I would have appreciated more stuff about the movie. I wish he had more of an opinion about how Afeni, Tupac's mom, just like would not cooperate. She wouldn't help. She wouldn't give permission for any of the music. It's legitimate for her to feel that way, but it felt incomplete. He didn't even say that she wouldn't give him the music.
In all of his filmmaking, he doesn't handle his subjects with any reverence or any respect.
No.
So you walk into this thing and you're like, look, people respect Kurt and Courtney. Say what you will about them as people or how they live their lives, but they were they were a type of artist that people got behind. They meant something to people, especially the people that will watch this movie. And that will be why it works, is if the community of people around it believe that you handled it. You can say horrible things, but if you can find out things I don't want to know, but if you handle it with like respect and dignity, and it's like, these are not just two sort of lightweight rappers that had some silly beef, right? These were cultural icons. They were, yes. and they were meaningful, and maybe they should or shouldn't have been. Those are interesting questions to were they worth all the praise? Were they really just dudes? Were they good guys? Like, but they definitely, and like, I think the Faith
Evans?
Is the one who's making the documentary that's coming out this year.
Yeah.
About Biggie.
She was Biggie's wife.
Yeah, so she's at least producing it, but she's trying to tell that story. So I guess I felt like I wished it had been handled, the way.
But that's just not his thing. He is a tabloid
journalist. And it was, I also think when this was made, it was tabloidy to white people.
Maybe.
It was maybe it was silly. It just didn't feel, or maybe to an Englishman.
Yeah.
It just felt like people don't really care. And I think you get here and you go, no, people actually, that's cultural, and it's, and it's regional, and it's, you know what I mean? Like it's about Los Angeles. It is about New York. It is about like, people sort of picking a side a little bit. I do remember thinking, I definitely like the West Coast guys. I definitely had that feeling. I did. I remember thinking, no one's going to ask me.
Yeah.
But you're down. And I'm a Northern California guy, right? But Tupac did some time in Oakland, so I picked a side kind of.
To go back to one of our first podcasts, your two sides of a coin thing. This was so thin. The only thing that gave it any depth or heart was Valletta Wallace, Biggie's mom. That's the only thing that gave this movie any heart at all. If they had talked to some fans, if he had made us care a little bit more about why he had any investment in this story aside from just digging up dirt on people.
Well, also, or Russell
Which
Poole.
was just depressing. Or Russell Poole would have been
like
great.
A classic whistleblower? Is he?
Yeah.
Is he a guy that wants attention?
They did not treat him with any level of seriousness that his story deserved.
I think they treated him the way the cops did, which is this guy's a loose cannon. Like this guy's maybe a loose cannon. Maybe he's a crybaby.
Yeah,
maybe he's not. Yeah. But that's the way it is when you're the lone person. But to me, I'm like, that is a fucking fascinating story.
Yeah.
And he's dead. Those, that's like, I don't know how
it's so weird. I'm so heartbroken about that. I didn't know.
Yeah. And he was sweet.
He was sweet. And you didn't really get until the end that his charges were serious. The accusation that he had against the LAPD was his accusations were serious, and that he really had a story to tell. I didn't get that really until maybe like the last interview or two with him.
Right. And how involved was he in how hard is it to not have to become part of the gang and be like, look, you're either in with us or out with us.
Get bought off and bribed and take the money.
Right. Because
over the badge.
How do you do your work then if everybody's on the take?
Yep.
Man.
So how many tough nulls would you give this movie?
I'd almost give it 3, only that I feel like there's it's like a source material.
Sure.
It's a good source material. It's funny, but it's hard. If you're looking for what the movie seems to be about, you won't find it. If you want, you won't. You won't find, you're not going to really get any, you're going to come into it and go, I feel like Suge Knight might have killed him. And you're going to leave thinking, I think Suge Knight had him killed.
Yeah.
Somehow. Yeah. And I don't know if Puffy had anything to do with it because they just let that fucking thread go.
Oh, totally.
Right?
Never.
But there is cool shit in it to look at and to look up.
Yeah.
And to maybe if you're a filmmaker, go, look, here's 10. I would give this to a class and go, take this documentary and everybody in the class pick one subject from here that's worthy and do research on that. Do a documentary about that. So 3 for me.
Okay.
Yeah.
2 tough nulls. It was just a penny dreadful. Just not good. I'm just.
Yeah.
And now that we've talked about it, I like it even less.
That's funny. I like it a little bit. I don't like it less, but Oh, and here's one thing I want to point out.
Okay.
At one point, I
Did you
forgot
type
this
up
guy
your
exists.
notes?
Dan Quayle was the vice president
that's right,
of the
Dan
United
Quayle.
States, and
he was the vice president.
He
That's
got
funny.
he went on a rampage about Cop Killer. I don't even know why this was in the movie because it was about an NWA song.
Yeah, nothing. It was just to cast more aspersions on hip hop culture.
Yeah.
To make it seem A, more dangerous, and B, more under the microscope of like the federal government. And
Right.
and all these guys were under surveillance. And
he kind of kept saying, I can't believe like a nice company like Warner Brothers.
Right.
They're fucking all evil.
Yeah.
Just so if you did not know Dan Quayle, he was vice president under the first Bush. These are just a few of the quotes from his term as vice president. So these are just random like that. The Holocaust was an obscene period in our nation's history. No, not our nation's, but in World War II. I mean, we all lived in this century. I didn't live in this century, but this century is history. I've made good judgments in the past. I've made good judgments in the future.
Wow.
To the United Negro College Fund, he said, and their slogan is, a mind is a terrible thing to waste. He said, you take the United Negro College Fund model that what a waste it is to lose one's mind and not have a mind is being very wasteful. How true is that? He was fucking amazing. If you look him up, like you could almost build a religion on the way he sees the world because he's he's the dumbest. He's truly the dumbest person that we've ever
wait, what?
No.
Until there's a caveat there, right?
Yes, but
there's an asterisk on him being the dumbest.
Here's the one shade of difference.
Okay.
I know for a fact that the reason Quayle was picked is because George Bush didn't give a fuck who was vice president, and they fucking introduced him to 3 people, and he stood next to Quayle. They took a picture. And he said, "How much taller am I?" And they went, and he goes, "That's fine."
I think because he was young and handsome too.
Yes, but he hadn't talked to him.
Right. He didn't know he was a ding dong.
He was a real ding dong. Yeah. So, but Mars is essentially in the same orbit as Earth. Well, Mars is somewhere the same distance from the sun, which is important. We've seen pictures where there's canals. We believe also water. If there's water, that means that there's oxygen, and if there's oxygen, that means we can breathe.
Wow.
That was his take on Mars. So truly, you got to look him up because this is like how I talk, except for that it feels the patterns are similar, but I feel like I make a little bit more of a point. He also believed that homosexuality was a choice and it was the wrong choice. So
the wrong choice.
Yeah.
We also have to consider people weren't as precise. Politicians are a lot more precise with their language now because everything is quoted and picked apart and disseminated through social media. And so people were just like pretty fucking free with not knowing that they couldn't be, or not even being aware that they would be quoted far and wide for everybody
that's correct.
You just weren't as
That's
nervous about being taken out of context or whatever. So he was just like not being careful. He also was a terrible speller, as we know.
Yes.
And but the thing about like gays and stuff like that, liberals talked like that too in the 80s. Yeah. It was messed up. It wasn't that long ago.
Right. So that's the one thing I want to say to people. Sometimes I'm like, look, I know it feels like things are awful.
Yeah.
Or things won't change. But in the 50 years I've been alive, things have actually changed.
A lot.
If you go back and read history, it was a slow boil at the beginning, right? And centuries of slow boil of people right? And we have more things than would be comprehensible, and we do always correct, and so people are catching up. Sometimes you want to go to people, hey, you know, people who are older, they're really trying to reset their meters. It takes a minute. You know, I used to love that Bill Burr thing of, I didn't mind Caitlyn Jenner. Like, it's just everybody, can't we just have a minute? If your friend walked out to go to the bathroom and came back wearing a dress, wouldn't you go, fuck Steve, what's happened? Like it wouldn't just be, you'd have some questions.
Right.
You just want to know. It's like you can't even turn around and ask a question anymore. Anyway, all right, that's Rock Out with Your Doc Out.
Yeah, bye.
Bye.